Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Hobbyside. And Hobbyside are a series that's dedicated to the hobby aspect of our channel. And as you can see, we have trees. Lots and lots of trees. So in this episode, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about the forests that we use within our games of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, as well as our games of Mordheim as well. And we're going to talk about these trees. And the reason why we're doing so is because Iron Major, as you can see here, has created all these trees over the years for our channel. And we're going to talk about exactly how his design process changed. We're going to talk about our older trees, the very first set of trees that we actually used in our games. And you can see how Iron Major's skill and his ability to create these forests have grown and changed over time with some very significant design element changes each time he has done so. So as you can see, we got plenty of forests that we have in our games of Warhammer. So we're going to be talking about those today and talking about the design elements of each of them real quick. So for all of you guys who are arborists out there and future botanists and are interested in our forests for our war games, this is the video for you. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about these real quick. So first of all, we're going to talk about these trees over here. These ones are our oldest forests that we actually have in our war games. And these trees are about, they're pretty old. They're about 20 years old. That's actually when these forests were made. These were made a long, long time ago. This is the very first set of forests that we actually used in our war games a long, long time ago as well. The design elements for these are actually quite simple. Let me go and show you these real quick. So this is basically what the original forests look like. It's basically just styrofoam. The base is made out of styrofoam, is all they are. So our Major sculpted these bases using styrofoam, just XPS foam. As you can see here, he kind of trimmed the edges and beveled them a little bit with a box cutter. He then painted the bases with a lime green color, and then he flocked them over using Woodland Scenic's flock back in the day. At the same time, he also used these old Woodland Scenic tree armatures for pine forests and the different types of flock they had for that time period. And that's originally how these designs were made. As you can see, a couple of them have broken over the years. They also get kind of wimped and bored. You can see they're kind of warped a little bit, as well as damaged over the years as well. So this is originally what we started off with, our very first tier of miniatures. As you see, did exactly the same thing back here in the background. These three are basically just orchards, what they're supposed to be. So like if people were, planting tree orchards or whatever. As you can see, it's got a cardboard base. This one's actually just straight up cardboard, backing board actually, if I remember correctly, with cork on the top. So here we have cork on the top of that. He then flocked it, put the Woodland Scenic armatures with the flocking for that, and that's how I made those as well. So that's how we have those. And then for our deciduous trees, which are trees of leaves, exact same design concept went to creating these guys as well. Styrofoam bases that he beveled the edges with, painted green, and then flocked it. Glued on these Woodland Scenic trees with their clump foliage, and that's pretty much how he did it. And for the longest time, these two bases of deciduous trees, these 6 bases of pine forest trees, as well as our orchards that we have back here, this is what we primarily started with when we started making our wargaming channel, and when we used to play wargaming with my gaming group. This is originally what we used originally, and this is the design concept that we had for the longest time. And you guys have seen these quite a bit through our battle reports. We've been using this since day one on our channel, and we've been using them for everything. Back when I used to play Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I used these for my Sylvaneth Wildwoods, for example. All right, so that's where we have those. Now from there, we start building up onto different, Iron Major started experimenting with different ways of making different type of forests, and he was largely inspired by different wargaming channels on YouTube, especially terrain making videos primarily. Once he started watching terrain making videos, learned a lot of different techniques and different techniques and different methods in order to create the forest as well as different materials. Woodland Scenics, for example, make excellent tree armatures. They also make excellent flocking. The problem is, though, is that they can be a little pricey. That's the only problem. So if you want to make a lot of terrain, it can get quite expensive after a while. So Iron Major, just like myself, we're both cheapskates. We're always looking for better ways of making things cheaper and making things look different. And so a lot of channels on YouTube, guys like the Terrain Tutor, Junk In, Junk Out, Rubbish In, Rubbish Out. Who else do we have out there? Black Magic Crafts with Jeremy, Luke's Affordable Paint Service. These are groups that, of course, have inspired Iron Major over the years in order to make different materials. So now we're going to go to our next tier of forests, which are these ones here. These ones are like little bushes, what they're basically like. We have this one here, as well as that one back there, and then we have a third one that's just way in the back over here. It's kind of a clips. This is the next series of forests as well as bushes that our major made, and these ones are actually, they all kind of be made exactly the same thing, it's kind of the same way. So first of all, this one's actually kind of wobbly here. This one actually got kind of loose. But just to give you guys an idea of what this is here, so here's how it basically works. It's styrofoam once again. So he has a piece of styrofoam that he cuts out of XPS foam, and he kind of bevels the edges a little bit. And then on the bottom of it, as you can see here, he glued a piece of manila folder to the bottom of it, so that way it could slide around and not cause friction. These ones have nothing on the bottom of it, it's just straight up styrofoam. You can see you can kind of grab your table surface, but these ones have a little bit more rigidity and allows it to be able to move easily. Now, if you're wondering what the brushes, what the bushes are actually made out of, it's actually made out of dryer vent cleaning brushes, is what these are all made out of. Now, for those of you guys who ever seen them, they have these long snake-like brushes that you use to clean out the vents for your dryers, and they sell these at dollar stores. You get these huge 3-foot length basically giant bottle brushes that you can buy for like $1 from the dollar store, and that's what our major used to use these. What he did is he basically clipped them with using clippers in order to get the size that he wanted to. So for example, I'm gonna pull this one out because this one's actually kind of loose. So you can see there's the bottle brush material that's inside of it right there. And he just basically cut it to the length that he wanted, and then he trimmed the top to make this kind of rounded look to it. That's what he basically did for that. And then from there, what he decided to do is, after he got done with that, he spray painted them with different color green spray paint, is what he did for these. And then he used really cheap water glue mixture using a spray bottle, and he sprayed them down, and he covered them with homemade flock. Now the homemade flock that we use, if you look really close, if you notice, it's very grainy looking, very fibrous looking. The reason why is because this flock is actually made out of two types of materials. First of all, we have like stuffing from like couch cushions, that kind of thing. The insulated foam that's found inside of pillows and things of that nature. He took that stuff and he grinded it down using a cheap blender and just mulched it up really fine, as well as sawdust is what he used for the flocking. And then what he did is he drenched those materials in different color green and yellow paints, let it dry out, gradually grind it back up again, and that's how he made his flocking for these. So you can see here, he took these bottle brushes and he dusted with homemade flocking. He did exactly the same thing to the base. Now to keep it all adhered to the miniature, what he did is he took the cheapest can of cheapest can of hairspray that he could find, and he sprayed it right directly onto it to keep it on there. And the reason why you want to use that is because the cheaper the hairspray, the more adhesive that they actually have in it. So in case you didn't know, that's basically what it is, basically just really weak glue. And that's what he did for those. And he just tore them up and just built those, sprayed them down, and that's where we got these bushes that we made. So it's a really cool design concept. And so I would call these the Mark II version of the trees that he made. While these ones here are Mark I, these will probably be Mark II. Now Mark III, let's go to our next step here. Mark III is where we start getting a little bit more creativity on his end. As you can see, we have this forest here, which is this beautiful autumnal color forests. I love the way these ones turned out. They look absolutely fantastic. He also created this really awesome forest that we have here, which is full of different style of deciduous trees. These are your broadleaf trees here. And they look really awesome. And then finally, we have our Mark III pine forest back over here as well. So we're going to talk about these ones as well. So you can see we started seeing the gradual change from like the really basic forest they made. We're starting to see a lot more detail being put onto it, and to now we got starting to get into this phase here now, which is really awesome. So let's go and talk about these real quick. So the flocking that he used for these autumnal forests, as well as these trees here for that one here, for example, that's the I was talking about earlier, the same kind of method. We took couch cushion foam that's inside there, and he just kind of grinded up inside of a blender, and he painted them different colors as well. That's what he made to basically make the foliage for these two trees. And of course we have the same thing with the sawdust for the flocking down here as well. But then as you can see here, we start seeing some additional designs taking place as well. So we got some foam here, not some foam from some homemade flock there. He starts adding different color greens to it to make it look like it's made up of different plant materials here on the bases. So we got like this nice little variety of color going on here. I'm going to just rotate this so you guys can see it better. So that's where we get these from. Same exact method was used to make these, using spray adhesives to keep it all kind of clumped together. Now this one was really cool. This one is really neat because it actually has multiple different style of trees. So So you can see there, this one tree here is made with one method. This is the same method that was used to make these ones. And then these two here, these ones are actually made with a different method entirely as well. All right, so let's go and talk about these real quick. So for these bases, once again, the base is just styrofoam. As you can see, we have little file places here on the bottom here. We have some manila folder using the bottom to smooth it out. But for these larger ones here, it's still styrofoam, which is really nice. So he's got a really good base to work off of. But on the bottom, as you can see, he's got whiteboard on the bottom of this. He managed to scrounge up some shower board and use that to make the bases for this, so that way it just kind of slides around really easily. He did exactly the same thing with the other one back here. It's XPS foam with a shower board beneath it as well. Now this one here, I believe he still used armatures on these ones, I believe. Let me double check here. Yeah, he still used regular Woodland Scenics armatures for these, but for the flocking on it, what he did is he took ventilation pads. This is the same stuff that's used for, like, you know, for air ducts, for your what you call for your air conditioning, or for your dryers, or for your furnaces. And what he did is he took that fiber and he tore it up into chunks. What he did, and he kind of skewered it onto the individual tree branches, and then of course he covered it with different styles of flock and color and painted them, used spray adhesive to make that look. He did exactly the same thing with the bases here with his different colored flocks to add some variety of tree bases. And he used exactly the same technique for these pine trees back here. These pine trees actually used like wooden skewers that he carved. What he did is he tore up the tufts of the dryer sheets, the filter tufts, and he skewered them directly onto this wood, and actually just built up layers on them. Is what he did. So as you can see here, it's got this like kind of skewered, like kind of like a shish kebab kind of, and he kind of stacked them up together, and then he trimmed it to the size that he want, and then he once again dusted them with flocking, homemade flocking again, after he spray painted them and then sprayed with spray adhesive and put them on their bases. So you guys are seeing these for us quite a bit in our battle reports as well. These looks really, really awesome. I really like this one because it's got a variety of different trees on it. So as you can see, we're starting to see our evolution of our builds from Mark 1 to Mark 2. Now we're in our Mark 3. So now let's go and talk about Mark 4. Now, for our Mordheim battle reports, Iron Major decided to go with Dead Forest, is what he decided to do for this one. So these ones are really, really cool. I like these ones a lot. So now we're starting to see a lot more detail on these ones as well. So let's go and talk about these real fast. So as you can see, for this one, this time he used cheap linoleum tile, is what he decided to do. So if you go to like places like Home Depot and Lowe's, they sell sheets of adhesive linoleum sheets that have adhesive on the back of them. You can peel them off like giant stickers and put them on your floor. Well, they make excellent base materials to make bases out of. So you can see that's the linoleum style. He just grabbed the cheapest one he could. He has XPS foam for the base on that, and then he kind of glued it together from there. Now this one is actually kind of interesting because this one's actually made of several things. So this is a tree armature here. This one's actually an actual tree armature that he used. And he glued it down the base. Now if you're wondering about these roots, if you notice the roots here, you got this really intricate root design going on here, all around here as well, as you can see there. How he achieved that effect, he used hot glue guns, we did for that. Using hot wood glue to create like roots and things. It adds three-dimensionality to the tree, adds a tree root looking effect at the same time. It also helps secure it to the base as well. And as you can see, he used sand as well as wood glue to create the texturing, and used Mod Podge to seal it. He uses homemade flocking as well as static grass tufts in order to decorate the bases. He then spray painted the trees and just kind of like dry brushed them gray a little bit because it's supposed to be in Mordheim, the city of the damned. It's supposed to be hit by a meteor, and that's how he created that. Now the rest of this design elements, as you can see, carry on for the rest of it. All right, so we have small rocks and pebbles that he also used. Rocks and pebbles that he found outside. He did exactly the same thing. Now these ones look different and they look very organic, and the reason why is because these are actually made out of sage. So where I live at, there's a lot of prairie in the city that we live at. And so there's all these sage, wild shade bushes just growing out there in the prairie. So what we did is that one day we went outside, we took a couple of clippers, we took some buckets with us, went out directly into the prairie, and we just basically started clipping the wild sage that was growing out there to create these really awesome armatures. We then let them dry out, so that way they can get nice and dried out, and then we also cleaned them off. And then that's where Iron Major basically got the idea to build these. We then took a vice pin drill and drilled into the bottom of the bases and used basically like floral wire to act as anchors. So that way we can secure them into the styrofoam bases, the XPS foam bases. And then we super glued them into place, and then of course the same design elements go throughout all of them. So these are like the Mark IV style of trees that we have. A lot of decorations on the bases. So these look really great. You've seen these in our battle reports from Mordheim. You've also seen them in our Warhammer Fantasy Battles where we have dead trees located throughout. So this is kind of nice because when you blend these in with the different trees that we have here, it just looks really awesome. We got a nice variety of trees to go through with those. Now, the next system that we're going with now is our new pine forests. So here we go. These are the latest creations made by Iron Major. These ones, of course, are pine trees once again. In fact, what Iron Major wants to do for our channel, he actually wants to make more of these forests, so that way this design of forests will replace the original designs that he came up with originally. So that's why they're built that way, so that way they can be replaced over time. Because the other ones are looking kind of worn, and so he wants to do that with them. Now these ones are actually quite interesting as well. This is where we're kind of starting to see all the design elements kind of take place. So first of all, we got our linoleum tile, once again. We have our base made out of XPS foam that he sculpted using his Proxxon cutter. Now, if you're wondering where the trees came from, the trees are actually from Walmart. Around Christmas time, Walmart was actually selling a bunch of Christmas decorations around December time period, of course, as you guys always seen. And one of the things that they had was a lot of these little miniature pine trees with like this white dusting on it to make it look like they were winter trees. Now, at the time, they were actually pretty expensive to buy during that time period. But what ended up happening is that Iron Major waited for Christmas to be over. And once Christmas was over, of course, Walmart, the first thing they do is they put all their Christmas stuff on clearance. So he was able to get these trees for less than $1 a piece. And that's where he got the trees from. And this is where most of them come from. Now, what he did with the trees, of course, that he decided to paint them over. What he decided to do is spray paint them with dark green paint. And then what he did is he sprayed spray adhesive on it and then dusted them with some Woodland Scenics flock that he had the Magic 8 container on. And these trees, now typically what you would do for these ones, you just take the trees and you just stick them directly into the styrofoam. But he decided not to do that. What he decided to do instead, and he was inspired by Jeremy from Black Magic Crafts, what he decided to do was actually cut little holes for the roots for each of the different trees on the bases. So when he sculpted these things, he actually had little holes carved into the styrofoam. So that way, these would then just stick them directly into those holes. You can wood glue them in directly. Not wood glue them, sorry, hot glue them in directly into the holes. So that way they would dry, be extremely sturdy. And then that same root design that he used on the Mark IV dead trees, as you see there, you got the wood glue, we have the hot glue making the roots. He did exactly the same thing for these ones as well, to secure them in place. He then painted the bases with light green paint, just cheap craft paint, and then he flocked them with Woodland Scenics flock with some static grass tufts, all kinds of stuff. So that where we got those from. So you can see we got different styles of flocking and vegetation, and these look really impressive as well. They look absolutely fantastic. So this is the latest batch of trees that Iron Major has made for our Wargaming channel. In fact, in our current, our latest few Warhammer Fantasy Battles, battle report videos that we've done, we've actually used these forests quite a bit just to showcase them and make them look really amazing as well. So these would be like the Mark V versions of what he's having right now so far. So this is what the Mark V would look like. Going back to Mark IV, Mark III, Mark II, and then Mark I. So as you can see here, we have a lot of forests on this one. Now these ones are all kind of divided out because I wanted to show you exactly what they look like with the different generations of trees that Iron Major has made. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the video real quick and I'm going to reassemble these trees so that way they're all mixed up together. So that way you get a good idea exactly what this forest would look like if we were to actually use all the forests in one giant battle. So I'm going to pause this video and come back and we'll go back to it one more time. Okay, and we're back. So as you can see here, this is what the forests all look like when fully assembled and intermixed. So you see that we got all different design elements of all the different trees, all the different styles of forest that we have. And in actuality, this is actually what real forests would look like, actually, if you were to actually find on a battlefield. Just because all forests have all kinds of different trees intermixed throughout them. So the diversity is what really makes it look really cool, especially if you just kind of pan down and look at it like this. So as you can see, we have trees, lots and lots of trees. Actually, if we wanted to, we could actually have this trees spread over the entirety of the battlefield and actually make the battlefield one giant forest if we really want to, with some dead trees, some autumnal trees, pine trees, deciduous trees, all that good stuff. That looks absolutely fantastic. And once again, all this is made by our mad terrain making wizard, Iron Major. He's the guy who makes all of this for our channel. It looks absolutely fantastic. Alright, you guys, so there you have it. This is going to do it for our episode that is dedicated to the forests of our battle reports. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this one, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.